Okay, okay. Here we go.
Hello and welcome back to the GOAT, a Brian De Palma fan podcast. And it's my pleasure to bring back to the show for another appearance my friend Ryan. Ryan, welcome.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited. Very excited.
Yeah, this is an interesting episode because I think I've made it pretty clear that I don't try and get too negative on this show. We're trying to put forth the idea that Brian De Palma is America's greatest living director. And it's kind of hard to do that when you showcase a big miss. But I felt like this movie, there was a good opportunity to talk about it because it's so easily accessible, at least here in the States right now. I don't know if anybody else is familiar, but Warner Brothers has been uploading a lot of classic films on YouTube completely free to watch.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, and Bonfire the Vanities was one of those uploads. So I was like, hey, it's free to watch on YouTube. Nobody has to, pay to rent it, or buy the, Blu-ray or DVD to watch it. If you're in one of those territories where Warner Brothers has uploaded it, it's now free to watch. So I was like, it's a perfect time to talk about it. And I rewatched it on the Warner Brothers YouTube channel after watching it when it was available on Max a couple years ago. And I watched it and I said, you know what? This is a very De Palma film. So I said, there's enough good stuff here to talk about. And I know you were game to take on any De Palma assignment I sent your way. So I thought maybe The Bonfire of the Vanities would be a good choice. So this is the 20th De Palma film, and it came after Casualties of War, which is a brutal, brutal De Palma film. And prior to that, he had made The Untouchables. So there's only one film in between what we talked about. We talked about The Untouchables on your guest appearance, and he made Casualties of Wars and then made this. So I know this was your first watch. What did you know going in, and what were your overall feelings when the movie ended?
Well, thanks for having me on. And like I told you offline, I'm up for anything. You give me anything from his catalog, I'm down for it. Now, I did do The Untouchables, which I admit, probably one of his most successful films commercially, critically. It's a flawless film in my books, and it's one that I grew up loving. And I'm surprised nobody in your show yet. Are you going to get to Casualties of War? If you need somebody for that, I love war films. I love Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn, and I haven't seen that one in a spell, but I remember seeing that as a younger person, being quite disturbed. But in the good
Well,
way,
that's the
films
thing.
do.
It's a tough movie.
So then Bonfire comes out, and maybe Craig, maybe after doing Casualties and really on The Untouchables, some very tough, darker, violent. Maybe he wanted to do his own. I would say comedies strong, but maybe his lighter fare. This is the lighter fare film, and I think that might be not excuse, but pass number one. I give Brian for this, but I hadn't seen this film. So, like you said, I have not seen this film ever in my life. It is one that I've heard nothing but terrible things about all these years, and so as years go on, and my time on this earth gets shorter and shorter left, I'm like, am I going to spend 2 hours of my life watching this film that's been so maligned by seemingly critics and fans? And I will say this, I had a lot of fun watching this film. I don't understand. I mean, I don't know. I think it's the book. I never read the book, of course. I think the book is a big hit.
Yes.
I find I'd have to read the book because seeing this movie and thinking about this in printed form sounds like a snooze fest. I think it's more fun to watch the movie. So I don't know. I think the film is just fine. I think the criticism, I think it's misdirected. What are your thoughts on the film?
Yeah, I'd agree. And I know we talked offline and you were going to wait until we recorded, but there was a book that was written, a journalist named Julie Salmon was on set the entire time. She was friendly with De Palma. He invited her on set. And she wrote a book called The Devil's Candy about the production that came out, I think, the year after the movie was released and failed. I have not read it.
I want to read that.
But within the last couple of years, I want to say 2022 maybe, they put out a podcast through Turner Classic Movies has a podcast channel. And they put out basically the podcast version of her book, hosted by Julie Salomon. So if you listen to that, you'll get the entire story of the production. And there's a lot of interesting tidbits. There's a couple of things at play here. This was a big assignment for De Palma.
Sure.
I mean, I'm I mean, it was, his filmography is pretty, pretty heavy, but I mean, we're
Hmm.
what, 8 years removed from Scarface at this point, which was not a critical or commercial hit. So that movie hadn't really entered its reevaluation stage yet. So
Right.
getting this assignment was a big deal. So I think that was part of the appeal to De Palma is like, hey, I'm gonna get to make a big studio film with big studio money, and get that bag, if you will.
Hmm.
A couple of things happened though. The producer on the film, after they went into production, took a job as the head of another studio. So
Okay.
the film, in essence, didn't have a producer. So De Palma
Mm.
became the de facto producer, which is a difficult job on its own. So in addition to directing
He's
the movie,
stretched. He's a
he
little
was
stretched there.
producing it.
Yeah.
At the same time, this was a Bonfire of the Vanities, the novel, was a phenomenon. Thomas
Yeah.
Wolfe, who is,
Yeah.
a pretty acclaimed writer, had written this, multi-hundred page book, about, class in New York City. And I think a lot of people just had a lot of expectations about it. But it's funny, they point out on the podcast that, maybe it had sold 1 million copies. And if you transcribe that to the movies, that's nothing. It's like, so the idea going in was like, well, we're not going to make an adaptation of this book for the million people that have read the
Right.
book. We're
Right. Right.
making this for a general audience
Of course.
that's going to go see it. And they wanted to hit all of the what, I forgot what they call that when you want to hit all the targets.
Right.
Men, women, under 25, over 25, the whole shebang. So that's what they did. And this really is a fascinating movie, and I'm glad there's a book that was devoted to it. And
I wanted to check out that podcast though.
yeah,
I
oh,
wanted to check
it's
that out.
excellent. I'll send the link and I'll share
Yeah,
the link
please.
in the show notes. Um, De Palma declined to talk for that podcast because he said, "I feel I've talked about it enough," and
Sure.
it's still, from every indication, it's still a very very sort of sore subject for him in the terms of, it's not a great point in his career, and I think it affected him in a way that, he didn't really want to go back and reflect on that. But like you said, it's an entertaining film, and also as you watch it, and we're going to talk about the scene you picked, but it's got a lot of those De Palma touches. It
Hmm.
starts with, the uninterrupted long take. I didn't time this one, but it's ten minutes or so. And it's funny, on the first episode of the show, we talked about Snake Eyes, which has that 14
Yep.
minute take, and how impressive that was. And watching this back, and we're not talking about the scene right now, but Bruce Willis had a lot of shit to do in that sequence. And
Yeah.
if you
Yes. Yeah.
and if
It's.
you
I
watch
almost
it,
picked that one. I almost picked
yeah.
it because I thought it was that impressive. But yeah.
Well, if you watch it, there's a Steadicam operator who follows Bruce as he approaches the golf cart. If you watch that scene, and they talk about it in the podcast, the Steadicam operator was walking backwards, and in
Right.
addition to that, he had to navigate getting onto the golf cart and sitting down.
Oh,
So,
right. Yeah. Good
I
for
mean,
him.
I'm never one for saying technical achievement trumps the quality of a film, but when you watch this film and you look at the care that was put into it, it's pretty impressive. So you've got the long take, and then you've also got at least one split diopter shot that I can recall.
Yep.
And then we've got the split screen scene that we'll talk about with you a little bit later.
Can I tell you the one scene that kind of ties in what we're going to talk about before we talk about that scene? The one scene that I almost picked that wasn't necessarily a Brian De Palma as far as I mean, I'm just getting to know him the way you do, is when they were talking to the Reverend Bacon for the first time, and he's looking down from his pulpit, and he seems to be really high up there, and he's looking down at the lawyers or the district attorneys that came into to his church,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got the black choir singing, gospel choir singing behind him. That will tie into the scene we are going to talk about, but I almost picked that one till later in the film. The other scene came up, like, oh, because that was more Brian De Palma we'll talk about. But I just thought let listeners know there was a lot of scenes as I'm watching this film. I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm preparing for the podcast, but I'm trying to watch the film, but I'm thinking, oh, this one, okay, maybe this one. So there's this one that actually has a lot of fun scenes to talk about.
Yeah, and it's interesting, not to spoil the podcast for you, but There's a quote from the time period from Steven Spielberg, who was, good friends with De Palma. And he basically said, any number of filmmakers could have made Bonfire the Vanities. Sidney
Okay.
Pollack,
You're
Norman
right. Right.
Jewison,
Yep.
a bunch of, those types of filmmakers. But he said, nobody can make Body Double or Blowout,
Hmm. Hmm.
saying that, there were several people that could have made Bonfire of the Vanities, but De Palma was unique in the sense that he could make Bonfire of the Vanities, but he could also make Blowout,
Right.
which
That's
I
great.
think is
Great praise. Yeah.
yeah, which is interesting. Another little factoid I will give you from the podcast, and that will be this last one I do because I don't want to spoil it. But
Oh,
the
that's fine.
character of Maria in the movie, played by Melanie Griffith,
Mm-hmm.
De Palma's first choice, and she was screen tested for this, was Uma Thurman.
Wow, it's a tough call because boy, I have a crush on her, as you know. I think you know that, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm infatuated with her. She's one of my favorites of all time. I mean, she literally is one of the reasons Kill Bill 1 and 2 is my favorite Quentin films of all time. Uma just steals those movies. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was before Pulp Fiction,
Yep. Yep.
so this would have been one of her very, very, very early films, and they go into detail of the hows and whys of her not ending up in the picture. So it's definitely worth a listen.
She might have been a little bit too young, maybe.
Mm.
Maybe.
Uh, Another detail I was wondering if you noticed is,
Okay.
and this is comical, and this ties directly into what a disaster this film was. Melanie Griffith, in the middle of filming, got breast augmentation.
Well, okay. Okay, so I'm thank you for bringing up the breast because I was going to bring this up. I didn't realize, or I'd forgotten, I don't know what, but seeing her in her lingerie or brassiere outfit, I was like, wow, I don't, wow, they looked fantastic. I was very much impressed. So she didn't start the film that way? Is that right?
No, it's
Oh,
and she didn't tell anybody either. I guess there was a period where they filmed, I guess, in New York, and then they moved to L.A. So there was a period of weeks where I guess she hadn't filmed. So she arrived in L.A. and I guess she was doing a costume fitting or something, and the costumer was like, "These measurements aren't matching up with what I have."
well, I do find it interesting that her underwear scenes, she was in full augmentation mode then.
Yes.
I wonder if she knew those. Honestly, if she knew those scenes were coming because she read the script and said yes to the script. I wonder if she's somehow, maybe you could argue, subconsciously or consciously said, I'm going to get prepared for this because she
No.
looked fantastic.
Oh yeah, and she did, and 100%. And I mean, it's 30 plus years ago at this point, and very little has changed. But she was an actress of a certain age at that point. She was
34.
closer to yeah, and the standards in Hollywood, they haven't
Yeah,
changed
I know.
much. She had
No,
just
it's
had a
true.
she had just had a baby within the last couple of
Oh,
months.
oh,
So
really? Wow. Good for
yeah,
her.
what's Dakota, her daughter Dakota,
Oh,
who
of course.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, no, she was very much aware of the fact that she was going to be doing that scene. So that I'm sure she focused on getting in shape and then got the little extra help from the doctors. It's funny if you watch the movie and you're aware of that, you can see there's scenes where she doesn't seem as pronounced
Oh, well,
in her
I have to go back and do the before and after.
in her costuming. But before we talk about the scene, because Melanie and Tom Hanks are not in it, do you want to talk a little bit about both their performances?
Yeah, I do enjoy Melanie Griffith. She is, but she might be an acquired taste for some people. The way she is, the way she speaks, her voice, and that's not an insult. I'm just saying she is not she's a different character amongst just the way she is. Like she just might seem a little bit. I hate the term ditzy. She reminds me of an A-list Suzanne Summers, if that makes sense. Like
Mm-hmm.
she could, her looks in some ways get her like when you are really pretty, sometimes it's hard to not be that way in films. But I've never had an issue with her. I've always enjoyed her in films. I don't go see her because she's in film like a Uma Thurman. Or Jodie Foster. Those are my two top actresses. I literally go see everything those two actresses are in. So I do have, less people think it's a misogynist statement I'm making. There are female actors that I love and go see all the things they're in. But Melanie, when she's in a film, I have no problem with her. Like, of course, Pacific Heights was a fun one. Working Girl, I enjoyed her shining through. She had a really good run there, and I enjoyed her in those films. she doesn't turn me off. I did find her character in this film, uh, and it's not her fault. But the way she was written, it was a little bit too. I found like she thought maybe she was in more of a comedy than the film that she was in. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does make sense. It does make sense. And this was a really challenging role and a tough character too,
yeah,
because Maria is supposed to be the type of woman that a successful, powerful man like Tom Hanks would be willing to throw his life away for.
right. Oh, and his wife, played by
Kim Cattrall. Yeah.
now Kim Cattrall. I didn't realize, or I've never really watched her in anything because I know she's big in Sex and the City was her big one of her biggest roles, right?
Mhm.
But boy, what a beautiful woman! Holy so, I had not realized. I actually had to Google. I saw her name in the credits, of course,
Mhm.
in the credits, and when she came on screen, I didn't recognize that was her. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, that's her. I actually Googled who's Tom Hanks' wife. Oh, it's Kim Cattrall. I mean, she's a stunning woman.
Yeah.
And that's the confusing part. I mean, Melanie, of course, is a beautiful woman too, but if I'm in this universe and she is my wife, I don't know who I'm stepping out on here.
Yeah.
Like,
Did you catch who played their daughter?
oh, did I? Okay, wait. Oh, I gotta cheat and look. Uh,
She went on
who?
to she worked as a child actor, but she went on as an adult or in her late teens and early 20s to make a lot of films, including the first Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst. Yeah,
Wait a minute. Did I get out of here?
yeah.
I'm not even okay. Did I not? I'm gonna go insane here. This is embarrassing.
No, it's not. I mean, I had to look
No,
because
I am a huge Kirsten Dunst fan. I love her. There's another great. She's an actress that I'll see her stuff in. Did you ever see her in her season of Fargo?
I have not. I have not.
Oh,
Yeah,
she was killer in that. Anyway,
yeah.
that was her. Okay, sorry.
She played their little daughter. Yeah, I mean, she's got maybe
Well,
like what 3 scenes or something.
but Craig, this is ridiculous. How did I not?
Well, the thing is, in typical De Palma fashion, the coverage in her scenes isn't traditional coverage. So you're never getting like super tight, close-ups on her. A lot of the interactions in her sequences are wide shots, which is,
No, but I'm
something that
still I'm embarrassed. I'm because I'm so good at this stuff. I'm absolutely ashamed of my people who are listening should be ashamed with me. I'm looking at the stills of her right now online of her in the film. No wonder I didn't. She has red hair
yeah,
almost in the film. I did not. I could see it
yeah,
now.
hmm
Just think she was only 4 years away from Interview with the Vampire.
yeah, right.
That's weird.
In fairness to you, Ryan, this was not a detail I picked up until I watched it a couple weeks ago for this show. Like when I watched it on Max a couple of last year or whatever, it didn't register with me.
I'm
And
just bowled over. This is like a Mandela effect. I'm literally bowled over. Like, because I even looked at the cast when I was researching the film. How did I even not even see her name? This is Mandela effect. This is what it is. Like, my memory is blown away that I didn't even catch her name in the credits. Wow,
Mhm.
crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
you got me.
So
Yeah.
Tom Hanks and just a little bit
Okay,
of a note
yeah, I
here.
know. And I wanted to apologize, and because you always want to make these so short. I do. I was like, man, every time I'm on with Craig, well, I'm always talking too much. Okay, Tom Hanks. I think this might have been the problem with the film, and he was great in the film. This is it, but the point is he plays somebody who's not likable, and I
He's too
think
likable of an
audiences.
actor.
That's right. I think audiences weren't ready for this. He was the lovable guy in Splash and movies like that, and the Money Pit, all these other type of comedy films. I think the audiences weren't ready, Craig, for and he did a good job, but if you didn't know Tom, if this was your first Tom Hanks film of all time. You're an alien from another planet. You're seeing Tom Hanks film for the first time. You would think he did a fine job, but I think people did not see Tom Hanks in this role. Maybe it should have been Bruce in the Tom Hanks role.
Possibly Tom Wolfe wanted Chevy Chase.
That's better.
Well, Chevy Chase is a natural
He's,
born asshole, so
why do you want to? I, boy, he's funny though.
he is. It doesn't mean he's not an a-hole.
I know, but I know the two could exist. It's crazy how terrible he is, but boy, he's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. No,
Anyways,
so
but yeah,
and this is something
okay.
you'll discover in the podcast. The whole approach to the film sort of revolved around making the Sherman McCoy character likable enough that audiences wouldn't be turned off by him. So apparently in the book
because
he's
he
a lot
wins.
worse.
Because he is in the book. I read that, but because he kind of wins in the end, so you're
Yeah.
sort of rooting for him, and you kind of feel bad for him to a degree. But I mean, he stepped out on his marriage. It's kind of hard to root for him. He is an adulterer. He's kind of like, I don't know. It's out of character for the Tom brand, and I think this was not a sell at the box office.
Yeah, no, you're 100% on point. And as you delve into the production of the film, you'll see that. So let's
Okay.
get to the sequence here. It's
Okay.
about 49 minutes into the film.
Yep.
The Bruce Willis character, Fallow, what's his name? Peter Fallow is starting to put a story together about the victim. And this is where the bulk of the comedy of the film comes from. And it kind of leans into the class warfare at play. And they're basically trying to turn the victim of the hit and run, this black kid in the Bronx, into a little bit of a saint, even though he wasn't. And this is something you typically see the media do, where they'll find a 12-year-old picture of a victim or perpetrator of a crime and say, look, it's just a little 12-year-old kid or whatever, and then not realizing he's 17 and
Right.
a lot can change in 5 years. So they're doing an on the street segment with the Reverend
Bacon.
and an uncredited Geraldo Rivera, who's not playing Geraldo.
No, he's playing he's what's his name again in the film?
I don't even. It's uncredited. So I did watch the scene again, and I was going to write it down, and I missed it because I wanted to see, is he supposed to be Geraldo, and he's not,
No.
but he might as well have been. And this is when we get the split screen technique. And the one thing I wanted to sort of get your opinion on, do you think the way the split screen scene works and functions, do you think this was an editorial choice?
Like, what do you mean by that? Like,
Meaning that De Palma didn't plan on doing this split screen until he was in the editing room.
No, no, they acted accordingly. I think this was done legit. This was scripted. Like, this was storyboarded to be this way.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, if you watch it, you're like, I could see it being cut in a traditional manner.
Right.
You've got your coverage of Bruce and Geraldo watching what's going on screen, and then you have the Reverend and his people. So, I mean, you could have really cut back and forth between it, but the split screen's really effective because you get to see them reacting to the Reverend and how the action's playing out, and it really is perfect use of split screen. So regardless of what the intent was,
You're right.
the execution is great. And then the way the scene pays off with F. Murray Abraham, it makes for a great transition as well.
It's incredibly done. So yeah, for our listeners, it's the Reverend Bacon who's going to talk to the news agency about this great tragedy, and he has his reasons to get on camera, to get his face on camera. And if you'll notice, as the Reverend is meeting Bruce's character and Geraldo's character, that did you notice the background? What was going on in the background?
Mm-hmm.
Did you catch that? I don't mean to be a trap question, but it wasn't until my second viewing that I caught what was going on in the background.
Well, like with all the signs and stuff?
No.
Okay.
When you watch it again, this is fascinating, Craig.
Yeah.
This is a real, no, I'm not trying to get conspiratorial here. Okay.
Yeah.
This isn't my intent, but the media will sometimes, we sort of talked about, the media will, they have a message or they have an agenda or whatever you want. Like they're trying to portray something to the audience, us, the audience at home.
Mm-hmm.
All behind the Reverend, there are people with prop pieces and sets. They're setting up to make the area look more urban blighted.
Oh, yeah.
They got guys running around putting tires up against cars.
Yeah.
And there's actually a scene. This is almost like this is what I mean. This movie, I think Brian truly wanted to make a comedic film, but it's a little highbrow. Like this part is very airplane-esque because if you watch it again, in the background they have people getting the shot ready. And you'll miss it because you're focused on the Reverend.
Yeah, yeah.
There's actually a person that walks by with a wardrobe, the wardrobe on wheels.
Yeah.
They walk behind with all the wardrobe. People are putting on their clothes and getting ready for the shot to make it look like, they're all getting ready. They're paid protesters. Now, I don't get conspiratorial.
Yeah.
These people were brought in to be angry. The Reverend paid everyone off to make this seem like a natural event. And that's why Bruce's character says, this is all like
A little too
like
much.
yeah. He's like, I'm a journalist. I want the truth. He's like, this seems a little theatric. And he's like, no, I heard you. The Reverend kind of gets defensive, goes, well, I just heard you were drunk. That was his deflection.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found that really, I didn't catch it the first time because
Yeah.
the Reverend, played by John Hancock, which is an
Yeah.
interesting character, like actor.
Yeah.
Uh, he was such a fun person to focus on.
Hmm.
You almost watch it again and tell me. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the activity that goes in the background, getting ready for the shot.
Yeah, no, that's a great detail. And then you've also got even that bit where Geraldo even asks him, he's like, "Hey, is this kid really
Yes,
as good as everyone says he is? Because by the time this piece is done, he's going to look like a saint."
that's right. His name is Carsoro or something like that. The
Yeah.
Geraldo character.
Hmm.
Geraldo, he's always looked Geraldo-ish.
Yeah.
Like this is this
Yeah.
is 35 years ago. He looks the same.
Yeah,
This
but
is
older.
how
He's got his look and he's never deviated from it. Like
yeah.
the barber knows how to cut his hair. He knows how to trim his mustache. Um, yeah.
He
And again, I don't know if while we're running out of time here, you want to talk a little bit about that transition to
yeah.
F. Murray Abraham's office, because again, I think there's a great bit of timing there where you've got, I think one of the funniest moments of the movie for me is when F. Murray Abraham is like, "That's my name." Like he's like, they got personal here. Like they've targeted me.
Yeah, it's a crazy at it because we're seeing three different things here. We're watching the movie, then we're watching the news broadcast of the Reverend talking to the audience, which is actually kind of us. But then I'm also watching Bruce and Geraldo watching the interview, watching their interactions with each other. They're kind of like, looking around. And Bruce's character, he looks around too. He actually is looking at the set around him. So I was more curious, why did Brian want us to show Geraldo and Bruce at the same time without any cuts and unedited? I just found it fascinating watching them just chilling. And I think, I don't know why, but that's kind of cool to see the side characters just chilling and Bruce looking around, looking at the setups. But Geraldo seems to be more engaged in the actual interview because this is, his news piece on the line. And I don't know, I really like that choice. I almost, before we forget, or I forget, I love the bit of the Reverend because it's all show and circumstance for him, pomp and circumstance,
Yeah,
where
and he
he's
acknowledges
walking
that.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he walks out with that singing gospel choir with him. I love how he has a traveling.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. This is very airplane-esque. Like this
Hmm.
is, maybe people weren't expecting it to be this. This is like the equivalent. It's the same type of humor, and actually the same year of release, I believe, as Oscar with Sylvester Stallone. It's the same type of humor. It's a different. I don't know how to describe it. It's airplane-esque without being too like goofy,
Yeah.
but it's
And
borderline.
unless you overtly say this is a comedy, certain audiences just aren't going to get it. And it's not taking anything away from the audiences because the audiences go in with expectations, but audiences laugh at the wrong thing sometimes and they don't laugh at the right thing sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
But this was good to see because De Palma's got a great touch for comedy, and
yeah.
it's rare that we get to see it, but it's definitely on display here. And I'd eventually like to talk about Wise Guys because I think that's another of
Okay.
his mainstream comedies that I think is really successful. And he basically started his career making comedies as well.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask you what else he's done comedy wise, but yeah, I think maybe the tone. I know I brought up Oscar, and I don't mean to. I don't want to tarnish your podcast by bringing up Oscar, but I think when people don't know the tone of the film, it
Hmm.
can be off putting. And I don't know how this was advertised, what the trailers were like. But it's an interesting film. It's not a bad film. These little cutaway moments, these split screens and long shots in this, it's good all around. I just think people might have expected something different from Tom. I don't know. I don't know why
Yeah,
it feels so bad. It failed badly. It was a bad fail at the bar.
yeah,
Like it was
yeah,
a $45 million budget and only made 15. Like this was,
yeah.
ooh, I
Uh-huh.
feel bad for Brian.
Listen to the podcast, but I'll spoil one more
Okay,
moment. The
please.
basically the marketing guy, the guy that was tasked with marketing this film, he watched the first cut of the movie and said to De Palma, "You've got you made a great film. I have
Right.
no idea how I'm going to sell it."
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to it right now by
Yeah.
stuff. That's what I mean. How do we sell this film? How do we show the trailer for it? And I did watch the trailer, as I've mentioned to you before. I'll watch the trailer after I watch the movie to see. Yeah, the trailer, I would say it's misleading, but it's like all the shots are there from the film, but it was the feeling of the trailer was not the feeling of the film.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, this was a really, really ambitious film. And one of the biggest risks you can take when you do something that's ambitious is you can fail. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I've always appreciated about De Palma, and I've said this before.
Hmm.
You know, if you're gonna make a big swing,
Yeah.
sometimes you're gonna have a big miss, and that's the case here. But I do think, like you said, when the movie was over, you were entertained. So
Yeah. Yeah, for
watching the
sure.
movie in a vacuum without any of the knowledge of the production history behind it, and what critics thought of it, and what audiences thought of it, it's a good, entertaining movie. I wouldn't rank this in my top 10 of De Palma
No,
films,
sure, sure.
but I'll definitely watch it again.
Yeah, I have no problem with this film, and I'm glad I got to watch it. I don't think I ever would have put it on had I not been a guest on your podcast.
Mhm.
So I like doing that. I'm glad I got to pick a film, or you asked me to do this film. I can't remember quite the order, but I'm glad I got a film to watch because like good. I get to watch a film I haven't seen before, and this was one of those films. It's been on. It's been in my mind. You hear about it. You hear about all this, and like good. I want to tackle film that everybody maligns, but I'm like, oh, I don't get it. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
get it.
One bit before we start wrapping things up, we
Sure.
talked about Melanie Griffith. We talked about Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Bruce Willis's performance? And it's always hard nowadays to talk about Bruce Willis's performances or just Bruce Willis
Right.
in general because he's gone. I mean, the
For all
Bruce Willis
intents and
the
purposes. Yeah.
performer
Yeah.
isn't with us anymore.
Right.
So it's always hard to watch these performances and these good performances.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just I've always thought Bruce Willis was a good actor, but I
Yeah.
almost wonder if watching this stuff in retrospect has changed people's opinion of him.
Hmm. I don't think it has for me. I it doesn't make me like, oh, gee, look at me. You know, I can separate the two, his medical condition and his performances in these films. I've always been a Bruce fan. I've always enjoyed him. I like his charisma. I like his screen personality. Some people don't. It goes with every actor, every actress. There's people that like the way people are. I've always enjoyed Bruce. I get why they picked him. I think they did pick him just to give this movie a bit of oomph because Bruce was big at the time, coming off Die Hard, moonlighting. He didn't have to do this role. Like he didn't add anything to the film in the sense of other than a marquee on the what you sorry name on the marquee.
Hmm.
So he was fine. He was good. I think that's the thing with this film. It's weird. I've talked about the three main people, how they were all. I feel like they're all kind of miscast, but they all did a good job. I don't know if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. The other thing, I think you definitely hit on something when you said Bruce Willis would have been a great Sherman McCoy.
I
But
think
at the same
so.
time, until you see the final scene of the movie, Fallow's not really that important of a character.
That's what I
Except
mean.
for
I
the
feel
fact that
like
they're framing this around the book that he wrote about.
right. Is
Yeah,
he in the book? Is his character in the
yeah,
book?
he's British in the
Okay.
book too, which Tom Wolfe had a
Okay.
huge issue with.
So that's what I mean. I feel like, yeah, it's like the old Stephen King when he starts barking, oh, I don't like what they've done with my films. Like, come
Yeah,
on, man, stop burying the film
hmm,
before it even comes out.
yeah,
So, yeah, what an interesting experiment this whole film was,
yeah. Well,
really.
and we've also talked about this too, if not on this podcast, on other podcasts we've done. But in
Right.
2025, the Bonfire of the Vanities would probably make like a great 8 episode
Yeah.
Amazon show.
Yep. Flesh out the characters, flesh them all out. Yeah, and maybe it will one day. In fact, it was just announced, kind of off topic, but they're redoing Cape Fear because I
Yeah,
believe it was based on a book, 8 part,
Apple,
whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
Apple
Apple Plus
TV.
show or something.
Well, they did that with Jake Gyllenhaal for the Harrison Ford film, Presumed Innocent.
Yeah,
So they're doing that. I like kind of how they're revisiting
yeah.
these movies that were made from books, but books, as you know, you got to flush them out. I love the 8 story, 8 hour, basically 8 hour film.
Hmm.
Some of these books deserve that. So I would love to see a proper Tom Wolfe adaptation of this movie, and I'm fine with that. It's not a slight on this film, but I'd be curious to see this film tackled in modern day times. Yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, a final thought here is it's a painful entry in De Palma's filmography,
sure,
but it's such a fascinating production with so much backstory that you can explore. It's a film I'm glad he made.
sure. Yeah, I I love it. I don't think we've said before, no director is without their Bonfire, the Vanities part of their collection. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Ryan, thank you for this discussion. I don't know if this is the last time we'll talk about Bonfire of the Vanities on this show, but if it is, it was a good discussion about the movie. And
mhm.
hopefully we can connect for Casualties of War because again,
Oh yeah,
that's
you've got a
a
lot. You're not done with this guy, man.
oh,
You
I
better
haven't
not be
even scratched the
bound.
surface.
Okay, because I know you've talked about this is your last kick at the can for a podcast, and that breaks my heart. So if this is your last show, then you better not end it till it's covered properly. So this
Well,
could take
no,
you a few
and
years.
I've said until I'm not able to do this show anymore for whatever reason, this will be an ongoing podcast. Again,
Okay,
I
all right.
mean, we've devoted multiple episodes to the same movies. There's movies we haven't gotten anywhere close
Yeah,
to. So,
Casualties of War. You better
yeah,
get me on
yeah.
for that one. Yeah,
Yeah, so we'll definitely make that happen. We'll make it happen in 2025. But
sure.
Ryan, for people listening, do you want to let them know a little bit about your other podcast adventures and what they can expect and what they can find right now?
Okay, so I'll quickly plug. I do one with my brother called The Worst of the Best Podcast. That's one that general audiences can get into right away. We do a variety of topics. We take a best of a topic, and then we say what is the worst from that best of list. I just completed at this time of this recording the Ed Zwick Flicks podcast, which you guessed it on three times.
Yeah.
We're finished his filmography. I am proud to announce, and you will be invited on again, so don't you worry, that we are sort of changing. This was discussed in the last episode I did with Doug when we did Trial by Fire, that it's going to become its own little network. Meaning, I decided that I love doing Ed Zwick's filmography and Brian De Palma fits right in there, but we can talk later. Where we create like a director's network of films, and my next director that I'm going to tackle is Michael Mann.
Oh, okay. It's funny because I think on our last episode
Yeah.
you had mentioned
Yes,
another
he's still
director.
there. He's still
Yeah.
there. He's still there. And but it's funny, Michael Mann. We're talking about Terrence Malick. That's not a
Yeah.
spoiler. He'll probably be my third one, but Michael Mann was actually in the running for the beginning, and I forgotten about that. That was one that was between him and Ed Zwick. So I went with Ed Zwick first, but Michael Mann has stuff in his filmography exactly like Ed Zwick, where it's like I love these films, but he's got films I haven't seen yet. So yes, you'll be cordially and officially invited to tackle Michael Mann film if
Yeah,
you
I
so
would
desire.
Manhunter, huge fan of
Done.
Manhunter.
Done. You already said it. That's your first choice.
Well,
That's some other.
I also think The Insider's a great film.
Yes. Yeah.
And I also think, in fairness, Heat should probably be some kind of super show. If you remember the Slycast, we used to do Slycast super shows,
Oh,
which would
more than one
be
host, like a multi-host.
well,
Yeah.
just Heat is the type of film that demands
Sure.
that kind of
Big
treatment.
wigs, the big guns.
Well,
All
just
right.
I mean, I just think if you're doing a Michael Mann season, in my opinion, as a humble podcaster,
Oh yeah, I appreciate your
Super
opinion.
Show, Heat Super Show is the way to go.
Or make it maybe like a three-parter. Like I could have someone come on and cover the first 50 minutes. Somebody come on the second 50 minutes. Whatever they divide up in three parts. That might be an idea. Yeah, because it
Yeah,
is a big movie.
it's a tremendous film. It's a
Yeah.
tremendous film. And I don't know if we're getting into spoiler territory here, but I don't know if you know that Michael Mann remade Heat.
Yeah, he did the book,
Well,
part
no,
two.
Heat, the movie, he had made already as another.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's what was called something that.
It's
No,
on
not LA
YouTube. I
Confidence.
forgot. It's like LA Takedown or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Uh,
That's right.
yeah.
I
So, I
did know
mean,
that. I forgot, but I did. I've seen it. I've watched parts of it, I should say, and that might be an interesting. I think I might be doing the same as I did for Ezwick, just tackling legit the ones that made it to the. This
well,
movie
like
was
I said, if
released
you're going
on.
to do a Heat Super Show, it might be worth
Oh yeah, yeah.
covering that TV movie
That's
but either
fair.
way, I'm looking forward to it. I think Michael Mann's a tremendous
Yes,
tremendous filmmaker. He's got a great filmography.
it's the same amount as Ezwick. 'Cause officially, he only has 12 directorial movies. If you could, only 12.
Yeah, well, he's been threatening Heat 2, which They already wrote the novel. The novel's sitting on my bookshelf, Heat 2, and I'm visualizing it as a movie and just really curious to see what he did, what he does, because I know there was talk of casting younger versions of those characters because Heat 2 gets into backstories and stuff. I believe Adam Driver was mentioned for
that makes sense
for one of the roles. But either way, Ryan, that's great. So I'll include links to as many of your shows as I can remember, but worst of the best, Zwix Flicks. You've also got the Rocky Going the Distance, the Rocky series podcast, and at some point in the next couple of months, you're going to be doing a soft relaunch of your Rambo series, right? As like a trivia-driven experience.
And you're going to be coming on hopefully for season 2 or 3. Season 1 got grabbed pretty quickly from people, so I'm only doing 4 episodes per film. So it's a limited re-release, so to speak, of the series. So I need to get you on because you were definitely a Rambo head.
As long as it's not Last Blood, I'm good for any movie but Last Blood.
Fair enough.
I really don't want to watch that movie again to prepare for a trivia contest.
Well, that makes you just want to get you out there that much more.
Oh, I know. Either way, I think this is officially now the longest episode of the GOAT.
Sorry, it's my fault. No, it's always my fault.
Who knows? I might start editing this and realize it needs to be a 2-parter. But either way, Ryan, thank you so much, and I look forward to talking to you for Casualties of War.
Awesome.